Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Project Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. I'm David Fiorazo, filling in for the good doctor this week. Joining me, none other than Alex Newman. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me, David. It's great to be with you.
Oh, thank you for joining us. Well, we've got a lot to share and talk about. I want to encourage people to get that share button, hit it, and let's get educated. So let's start today with a disturbing story out of the UK. And remember, what happens in the UK doesn't always stay in the UK, where a theater group is attempting to host a play called The Family Sex Show, which has the actors getting naked in front of families while they encourage children to explore sexual pleasure. What in the world? So, Alex, quick thoughts. What's going on over there?
It's another symptom of the problem, David. Our societies, and I include Britain, I include the United States, I include basically all of what used to be known as Christendom, right? The Western world is becoming morally degenerate to the extreme. And if you look at the things that they wanted to do in this so-called performance, there you see some pictures of it. I mean, this is exactly the type of thing that pedophiles do, and we need to take this very seriously. What pedophiles do, and anybody who's studied this knows this, anybody who's been in law enforcement dealing with this knows this, is they try to break down the natural inhibitions that children have toward these topics, right? Little kids aren't interested in this stuff. In fact, when they hear about this kind of stuff, they recoil in horror. And so what pedophiles do is they bombard them with images of naked people, with sexually vulgar terminology, just to kind of normalize it and break down their instinctive recoiling at that. And that's what this is. It's the same thing that they're doing in the government brainwash camps. It's the same thing that they're doing in all these TV shows for kids. They're trying to break down children's natural inhibitions. And the end game here, if we just cut straight to the chase, the end game here is to normalize and eventually legalize sexual relationships between adults and children. That is what these people are trying to do. Yes, they're that sick in the head.
Yeah, it's like Alfred Kinsey and Margaret Sanger on steroids. They're, just like in America, they are trying to reach kids as young as 5 to explore sexual pleasure and try sexual practices. So, Alex Newman, apparently it was canceled after nearly 40,000 parents signed a petition. Why did it take that many, and why was this even an idea in the first place that they were going to implement? And by the way, thank you for those of you parents in the UK. I hope America does the same thing. So why does it take so much pushback to cancel something that never should have been done in the first place?
Well, I think it's because the sexual revolutionaries or devolutionaries have infiltrated their way into all these positions of power, and the only time they back down, if even just so slightly, is when the outrage is so huge they know that they're jeopardizing their whole agenda. And so this is the same tactic that the Marxists use, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So you propose something completely unhinged and outrageous, like, hey, let's have naked people doing sexual acts in front of 5-year-old children. And then sane people say, wait a minute, that's insane. You guys should be in jail. Okay, we'll walk it back a little bit. We won't be fully naked, or we'll take out some of the grotesque stuff. I guarantee you, within a few years, these freakazoids will be back again trying to present this filth to little children.
Yeah, what's interesting, like you said, they push as far as they can possibly go, and then they get a little pushback, so they'll draw it back just a little bit, but they will still get part of their agenda accomplished. Now, it says it contains advice on sexuality and gender pronouns, and links to the videos are on their website about how to become an LGBT ally. So this is really disturbing, Alex. It's out there for the whole world to see, but unfortunately, apparently not enough people have been paying attention through the years, right?
Yeah, well, and unfortunately, after several generations of dumbing down and indoctrinating our children in public schools, we're at the point now where there's a significant segment of the population. It's always hard to know exactly how large because the polling agencies are so dishonest. But there's a significant segment of the population, probably not anywhere close to a majority yet, but a very, very loud, vocal minority that not only thinks this is okay, but they want to go even further. And we see this whenever you let these people do what they want or run free. You see exactly what they're trying to do. We got documents from Planned Parenthood talking about children have a right to any kind of sexual activity they want as long as it's consensual. That's the agenda that they're pushing, and they will go as absolutely far as they think they can go before people push back and say you're not going any further than this. But then they'll just come back. They'll come back a year from now, 2 years from now, when they think they can push a little further.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they use arguments like, well, children need to be aware of these things and they need to know this information. And by the way, I just want to read this. This is from This Egg. These public performances would have offered safe and positive learning to children, young people, and guardians about rights, bodies, sex, and relationships, advised by safeguarding and educational specialists. And it says, it is regrettable that violent and illegal threats and abuse directed at the company and venues by a small group of 40,000, a small group of people with extremist views has prevented families from opting to attend something that was transparent, consensual, and legal. Alex Newman, briefly, there's a word they're using now, consent, right? Even if a younger person, it would have been illegal, right, if the adult initiated it. But since it's consensual, well, what does that mean? How are they using that?
Yeah, and that's the new buzzword, right? And that's, if you go in any government brainwash camp masquerading as a school in this whole country here in America, same thing in the UK, the new buzzword is consensual. You can do anything you want as long as it's consensual. You could do it with a donkey, with a kid, with 8 people at the same time, and as long as there's consent, there's no problem with it. And I want to point out one more thing too here about this disgusting attack aimed at children. There is government funding involved here. In the UK, like increasingly in America, the arts get these big subsidies from the government. The venues get these big subsidies from the government. So here they're taking tax money from people who don't agree with this stuff, running it through the Arts Council England, which is part of the government there. It's a government funded body, and then using it to support this kind of filth. It's absolutely unconscionable. And when you see these buzzwords that pop up in all these different government programs, like government schools, government advertising campaigns, government-funded arts programs, government-funded training programs for government employees, you realize there is a very nefarious agenda, and people should be very alarmed by this consent term. Not because there's anything wrong with consent per se, but because there's an effort to shift away from the traditional values surrounding sexuality, which have been under assault for generations, and toward this new set of values. It's totally divorced from tradition, from the Bible, from objective morality. It's just something that they came up with because they figure under consent they can justify virtually everything except rape.
Yep. Excellent point. Thank you, Alex Newman. To be continued, this conversation. But we've got much more to come on the Dr. Duke Show. Stay with us.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
All right, we're back with Alex Newman from the Sunshine State of Florida, and we're going to move on to our next story. This is somewhat artistic as well. I'm glad you brought up that point about the arts. A university hosted a drag queen story hour for 2-year-olds. This is happening across the country in different places. This is from Campus Reform. And there's code words. We talked about consent. We talked about under the arts or sex education. Code words in this story, inclusion and acceptance of drag queens. This has been going on, sponsored by public school community libraries, but also in public schools in their libraries. And even seen it sneak into some churches. So, Alex, this is something that's been going on. Really, it kicked off in about 2017. It kind of started peaking when they started debating public restrooms and policy. So, what are your thoughts on this? 2-year-olds.
Yeah, and you know, that's about as young as they could be and still understand words. You know, no, really, that's what they're going for now. And you know, next they'll want to go even for babies that don't understand words. Just show them sick images and stuff. But you know, when we warned years ago, David, and I know you've been sounding the alarm, and I've been sounding the alarm, Dr. Duke's been sounding the alarm, we've been doing this for a long time, this is not our first rodeo. When we were warning that they want to target your 2-year-old children, they want to target your kids in kindergarten, oh, that's crazy. We would never do that. We just believe in equal rights for homosexuals, and you know, the narrative keeps changing. But we were called kooks and conspiracy theorists, and they were inventing stuff, and of course, now we're here. Are all these people going to turn around and say, oh, we're sorry, you're right, we really did want to sexualize 2-year-olds. You're right. We really did want to do the gender fluidity stuff for kids who could barely even start talking. We're not going to get apologies from them, but this is the agenda. It's being, again, just like this horrific story out of the UK. This is happening here in the heartland of America in a conservative state, and it's being funded by taxpayers. You got to wonder what is wrong with the people running this university. You got to wonder what is wrong with the parents who would take their 2-year-old children to an abomination like this. It's so gross, David.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It's interesting that some of this is in red states, conservative states, and one of the things they have, the drag show read a book called, the book was called Red, R-E-D, A Crayon's Story is all about the blue crayon mistakenly being labeled as red. This is code for the transgender movement. Right? Here's your argument, right? I was mistakenly assigned the wrong gender at birth, so there is no God. Somehow I was assigned this gender. But Alex, I want to get your comments on these other things they are promoting, other events: Condom Bingo, Pride Parade, Dragonfly Drag Show, an event called Let's Talk About Gendered Restrooms, and the, of course, lavender graduation at the end of the month. And there's more, but Alex, Oklahoma State University, Museum of Art.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And, you know, this was happening in California. Of course, everybody now has seen that infamous picture of a man in a woman's dress at the Michelle Obama Library with the demon horns on, reading, you know, LGBT stories to the kids. But this is ubiquitous now. And I actually went to the webpage of this horrific operation. And they're bragging. They've got testimonials from kindergarten teachers, from first grade teachers, second grade teachers, about how great it was to bring in a drag queen to teach all these bigoted little children, because they come from bigoted homes, about the wonders of gender fluidity and transgenderism and all the rest of the stuff. And, you know, and they say a lot of this is we got to teach these children tolerance, because, you know, their bigoted Christian parents are going to teach them that there's only 2 genders, and their bigoted Christian parents are going to teach them that monogamous heterosexual relationship is God's design. And so we've got to teach these kids tolerance so that they don't end up as intolerant bigots like their parents. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. So I did a story a few years ago now for the Freedom Project, for Freedom Project Media, as part of my blog here, the Newman Report, about a drag queen event that they had at a middle school in Colorado. This was a career day fair, so they were bringing in, you know, adults who had jobs to talk to the kids. And one of the ones they brought in was a drag queen. Its name was Jessica Lahore, and I wrote an article about this, and it wasn't even that critical. It's like, hey, a middle school brought in a Jessica Lahore to do a drag show. And in the name of tolerance, these people came across me, and they bombarded me with some of the most hateful stuff you could ever imagine, David. I got multiple notes telling me I should kill myself, that I should die, that I'm horrible. I was like, man, these are some really tolerant people. Let's give them control of the government and our children.
That's right. That's really interesting. You point out the obvious. The preachers of tolerance are most often the most intolerant, particularly of the biblical worldview. We've got to take another break. We're going to come right back. More to come on the Dr. Duke Show.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
All right. I hope you're ready for this. Moving on to our next story, and let's go to Maryland, where the school board there, interesting though, Maryland is a blue state, liberal state, but a school board is going to adopt a new flag policy after teachers were, quote, bullied into supporting the LGBTQ pride flag. Now, Alex Newman, this is really interesting because not only is this Maryland, but some government school teachers are saying, basically I'm paraphrasing, even I felt bullied being in the education system for as long as I have, that they're pushing this, making us forced to show these flags. So Alex, your thoughts on this? It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is ironic. It's, again, the tolerance brigades, right? But, it's not mentioned in this story, but there's also another element to this that's critical, and that my guess is Fox News probably wasn't aware of, but a good friend of mine, and actually Dr. Duke knows him as well, Hal Shurtleff. He has currently got a case at the Supreme Court right now about trying to fly the Christian flag at the City Hall at Boston. And it looks like he's going to probably win a 9-0 decision saying, look, you can't fly communist flags, homo flags, Muslim flags, any kind of ridiculous flag you want, and then discriminate against the Christian flag. And so my thinking is these people in Maryland are probably saying, when that ruling goes away, we don't want it. Not only are they going to be hanging up Black Lives Matter and terrorists and communists and Marxists and homo flags, what if one of the teachers decides to put up a Christian flag? You see one right behind me right here. Oh, no, we can't have that. All right, quick, change the policy. My guess is that's in the back of their minds, if nothing else.
That's really interesting. And there was pushback by the Maryland School Board, the Carroll County School Board. Now, the vote came after a collection of small rainbow pride flags was donated. Someone had that motive, right? Let's donate these to the county public schools. And school board members felt bullied into displaying them, thought they were pressured. But they're supposedly under the guise of supporting all kids in the best way that they can, and in a politically neutral way that creates a safe space. There's code words, a code word alert, safe space for every student in our schools. Alex Newman, who wouldn't want safe spaces for our students?
Yeah, until you realize that those safe spaces do not include safety for Christians. In fact, if you're a Christian, you will be relentlessly bullied, demonized, terrorized, mocked, ridiculed, harassed, if not worse. So when they talk about safe space, it is a code word. It's a code word for, hey, we're going to push sodomy and transgenderism and any other radical idea that we want to push on your kids, except allowing them to actually be safe if they disagree with this madness.
Yep, so we're teaching you a lot of different words. Isn't that interesting, the language? Just really quick, I think we have just another minute. Your thoughts on how language has changed, because the left seems to be redefining words. Of course, they redefine truth, right? But they're redefining words and giving new meanings, new social justice or politically correct meanings. Your thoughts on that kind of part of the agenda?
And they've been doing this for a very long time. In fact, in the book 1984, that's one of their strategies, right, is they come up with new definitions for words and alter language. It's a critical tool of the Marxist left. And one of the things that I tell people out there who are concerned about this, you must get yourself a copy of the 1821 Noah Webster's Dictionary, because then you can look at the things that the Founding Fathers wrote, you can look up, and you'll see the definition of words back then versus what it is today. They're worlds apart. We're not even speaking the same language anymore. Look up education. Look up marriage. Look up sin. And what you'll see is we're speaking a different language now. This was a slow but very deliberate process, and that's one of the reasons why the left keeps winning and conservatives and Christians keep being defeated.
Yes, they're changing the language on purpose. Thank you, Alex. All right, Before We Go is coming up next, which includes a story of a Texas school district that is moving to a 4-day school week. We'll tell you why after the break. All right, everyone. Well, education content is always the primary focus of the Dr. Duke Show. Before we go, let's leave you with some other stories worthy of a comment or two. Let's start down in Houston, Texas, where the Jasper Independent School District is so desperate for teachers that they've decided to adopt a 4-day school week starting this fall. Now, the district claims a teacher shortage and retention problems are the primary reasons for the change, and area residents say if a 4-day school week is what it takes to keep and attract quality educators, you got to put that in quotes, it's worth a try. So let's check this out. Watch this video.
I have some mixed feelings.
It's a common feeling. A lot of folks are now digesting what a 4-day school week will mean for families. Christine Gobert, a retired teacher, says if teachers support the new schedule, she supports it too.
In rural Jasper, that we want to have teachers that want to have a job and are certified to teach and know the curriculum. I think if this is something that they're happy about, I say let's give it a shot.
Yeah, as long as they know that curriculum. Oh boy, I think we could have opened up another can there. But in addition to the 4-day school week, teachers that stay in their positions this fall will also receive a $3,000 bonus. There are two issues facing the district with the change: how they will feed needy children on Fridays, and who will watch the young children when parents still have to work. Now, Alex, you're a homeschooling dad. Now, I'm assuming that your take on this is the less time in the government school classrooms, the better. Am I right?
There's no question. And, you know, all across the country, I've spoken to political groups, churches about this topic. And I always tell people at the end, and only half kidding, like, you could put your kid in a closet for 12 hours a day, and they'd be way better off than putting them in a government school during the weekdays. So, you know, and I also tell people, if your kid is at school messing around and not paying attention and blowing spitballs and getting kicked out of the classroom, you're going to be in a much better position than if your kid is sitting there paying attention and believing the propaganda they're teaching them. And it's true. The stuff that they're teaching is so wrong, so inaccurate, so evil that any child will be better off not listening at all. So 4 days is better than 5. No days would be better than any, of course. But
yeah, no days. All right, moving on to a record-breaking story. Sean Hannity has passed Larry King as the longest-running primetime cable show host in television history. So the Fox News host has been a fixture on the conservative network for 25 years. In fact, the record broke was 25 years, 6 months, and 15 days. The previous record was held by Larry King and ran from June 1985 to December 2010. So the 60-year-old Hannity has been part of the Fox News network since it launched years ago, decades ago. His nightly audience averages 3 million people. And finally, though, we got to get back to Alex and talk about a really important project. I was blessed to interview Mark and Amber Archer as well. We wrap things up with a little mind pollution. Now, this is a new documentary that showcases just how bad the leftist agenda has gotten in public schools. And our very own Alex Newman was asked to be a part of it. Take a look.
They said, okay, now we need you and your team to be able to explain what homosexuality is to a 4-year-old student.
To introduce this kind of material at that age, frankly, it's child abuse.
You're going to teach our children that it's okay for any two children of any age, of any sex, to have sexual intercourse with each other as long as two components are present. One's using a condom and they both give consent. Did I hear that correctly?
It's not a neutral venue. There's no such thing. Okay, the schools are doing your job. They are discipling your children, but they're not discipling them in the faith of Jesus Christ.
It's only the exceptional child that even survives that system.
Wow. Again, the movie is called The Mind Polluters, and you can bring it to your community. You can learn more about it visiting themindpolluters.com. Alex, you were interviewed. We saw you there. We're seeing you here. So for this documentary, what are your thoughts?
The Mind Polluters is, in my opinion, one of the most important films of the last decade. It's phenomenally well done. I can't recommend it highly enough. And I've noticed that now the leftists are starting to pay attention. It was just shown recently at the Texas legislature. Multiple members of Congress have seen it and have really liked it. I mean, what's happening? This film is going viral. It's being shown in churches all over the country. People can watch it. And so now the left is starting to pay attention. And actually, I just saw a link to a very nasty article exposing us for being mean old Christians who believe that children ought to get a proper education education. So yeah, the article says, seeing red, Nebraska politics from the left, the people behind the anti-LGBTQ propaganda, the mind polluters. Oh, we sound so terrible, but no, let them pound sand. Parents need to see this. Pastors need to see this. We've got to sound the alarm.
Exposing you who are exposing demonic agendas. But
Yes.
anyway, thanks, Alex. That wraps it up for this show. Alex Newman, it was a pleasure. You can connect with him on social media at his website, libertysentinel.org. Alex, we'll see you back here tomorrow.
Looking forward to it.
For all of us here at Freedom Project, I'm David Fiorazo, and until next time, stay educated, my friends.